Hello, hello. Is anyone there? It sounds rather interesting to say. Anybody logged in? There is a, ooh, hello, Roz. I can see you in the chat room. If anyone else has also logged in, feel free to use the chat room so I know that you're alive and well. Boo. I love that. Very cool. Has it cooled down where you are in South Australia? Hello, Glenn. Welcome, welcome. A few more people are starting to slowly log in, so I'll give it another minute or two before we start. Hello, Sarah. Fantastic. Great to see you here. Everyone's surviving the good old Aussie summer, extremities of weather and storms. We've had storms in Sydney in the last sort of hour, so hopefully everybody is safe and well. Oh, very good. How'd you need, Susanna? Hello. Sharon, hi. Good to see you. So yes, I hope everybody is safe from the bushfires to the west and the flooding up the north, and now wonderful storm front in Sydney, and some serious windy conditions in Melbourne of late as well. I can imagine there was some interesting stories on the news last night as well. Oh, cool. Nice to see you here too. Andrea, hello. Colleen, good to see you too. Oh, Janine, hello. Glad you could make it. Hope all is well. Awesome. I'll just wait another few minutes and we'll get started. Cool. Now, can anyone see on the right-hand side, there is a box that you can actually download a checklist. If you're able to see that, are you able to let me know through the chat room? Oh, hello, Andrew. Yes, fantastic. Make sure that that's there for you guys. Cool, brilliant, excellent, great. That's actually going to help a lot with today's or this evening's webinar. So don't have to download it right now, but it will help a lot with what we'll be talking about today. Fantastic, brilliant, good, good, good. The links work. Wonderful. I love it when it works. Awesome. All right. Let's see, we'll get into it now. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight. I appreciate the time it takes to set aside for something like this. As we know, when it comes to the paranormal, it's hard to make a weekend, let alone a couple of hours during the week. So I deeply, deeply appreciate it. Firstly, if I could ask if anyone is able to turn their mobiles to silent, if you do have them on. And also, if you have your internet browsers open, if you're able to actually minimize them or even maybe possibly close them all, because you have given your time up. And I want to make sure that you guys are able to get as much out of the next 20 to 30 minutes as possible. Also, as you can imagine, when it comes to demonic possession, demons haven't been proven by science, just like with ghosts or spirits or UFOs. So this particular webinar is just a guide, just like with anything else. Now, as I said, you may, if you've just logged in, which I can see, you may notice that there is a box to the right of your screen, which is for you to download a checklist guide. This is for you to keep. It will be open the entire time that we're on air. So if you don't panic, if you don't download it just this very second, but it probably would help if you did. And for those who are downloading it, like I mentioned before, it will actually help in going, because the checklist actually has the points that we'll go through tonight about the physical and the parapsychological areas, and will give you a better understanding. So feel free to grab a pen If you haven't printed it out, or if you're a bit savvy with the whole computer thing and you're quicker with typing, use that as well. I'm quick with typing than writing. And make notes on each of these particular subjects, so you get a bit of a more rounded idea. Instead of just that particular topic being mentioned, you get a bit more detail around it as well. So demonic possession, what is it? Firstly, demonically possessed people are rare. I only know of, I'll say, 2 people that have actually been involved and or attended exorcism, and both in their 15 years of experience have only ever really had about a handful of cases confirmed as what they would deem as demonically possessed. So, demons are fallen angels, according to the Bible, who have been cast out of heaven to earth for eternal torment. The word exorcism comes from the Greek word ek and the verb holkizo, which means I cause someone to swear, and refers to putting the spirit or demon on oath or invoking a higher authority to bind the entity in order to control it again and command it to act against its own will. Now, casting a demon out isn't just about driving it out of the person. The priest has to bind the demon away from the person. And this is because if they don't bind the demon to something away from that person, it will then find the next person to use as what they call a home. Hell, believe it or not, is worse than a place on earth, even for a demon. So using a person's body is its absolute aim. Here we'll delve in a little bit into the history of demonic possession. I will say before we do go into it, you may hear a couple of sounds. I live in a semi-rural area, and usually at dusk, every man and his dog comes out. Birds, dogs, cats, you name it. So if you do hear that in the background, that at least gives more weight to the fact that I do live in a beautiful bushland area. But of course, when the sun goes down, everybody wants to have a word. Okay, so possessions, right. The reference to demonic possessions go back as far as the 2nd century. The Ritual Romanium is the priest's service manual containing the only form of exorcism rite sanctioned by the Roman Catholic Church, first written in 1614. So a fair bit of time between the first reference and the priest's manual. The Middle Ages saw a revival of ancient superstition and demonology. And there's good reason for this too. The Middle Ages saw much disease like the Black Plague, saw a lot of war, Viking invasions. People of the time were understandably wanting to know why such horrible things were happening to them. And the church associated many of the problems of the time, with sin and divine punishment. A good example of this is the term people use when a person sneezes, bless you. Sneezing was the first sign of the plague, and very few people survived it, as it was believed that blessing sneezes might actually help save them. So people began covering their mouths and their noses when they sneezed to avoid passing the plague on to others, and also to stop their soul from escaping from their mouths. So blessing sneezes also helped the soul find its way back to the sneezer's body in case it had escaped. Now, imagine it now when you're at work or the office or school or college and someone sneezes and you say, bless you. Little do they know that you're actually wishing that their soul finds its way back to their body. Demonic exorcisms decreased by the 18th century, but then the frequency increased by the mid-20th century. So the decrease was largely due to the advancement in medicine, and in turn took away some of the superstitions. Some of, that was an example, say for instance, with washing your hands. Even cholera is a waterborne disease, and just changing the supply of water to the local town actually stopped the spread. And this in turn made the certainty of life just that little bit longer. So the increase in frequency around the mid-20th century, a bit intriguing, would you say? Well, we have one movie to blame for it. It's The Exorcist. It has so much to answer for. Believe it or not, a lot of it has come from this particular movie. Since its release in the 1970s, and of course, there was a Satanist movement that actually started in California. The growing interest in the topic of demonic possession, once it, again became really hot news. Oh God, was it last year? It must have been last year. There was the Charlie Challenge. Who remembers that? This was a method to try and contact a demon called Charlie by using two pencils stacked onto each other. This simple act alone apparently caused all sorts of demonic possessions around the world, and even as recent as the last 3 to 4 months. There was that the live investigation of the house that Roland Doe, where the movie The Exorcist was actually about. I think it was the Tennessee Wraith Chasers actually filmed it. So demons are hot topics right now. But of course, unfortunately, with that particular episode, the reports back were that nothing actually really happened, unfortunately. So there wasn't any activity in that particular house. Okay, so what are the signs of demonic possession? Firstly, we'll go through each of the physical, as mentioned before, and then we'll start to move into the parapsychological signs. The first, physical signs. Convulsions or fits. The closest way to describe this would be witnessing somebody having an epileptic fit. Now, who in this chat room and on this webinar has actually witnessed somebody having an epileptic fit? Okay, so some people are having some issues. Okay. Can anyone still hear me? I know that a couple of people have had some issues with it dropping out. Okay, so some people, so Susanna actually has, okay. So you've witnessed somebody having that. And so Anna as well, yep. Andrew, okay, right. So a couple of people have witnessed. It's pretty confronting. It is a pretty, yeah. Oh, good, brilliant. Okay, cool. So it dropped out for a little bit. Fair enough. Right. Okay. Well, I will blame it on the weather. Why not? Cool. Excellent. Brilliant. So, okay, brilliant. So there are quite a few people who have actually witnessed somebody having an epileptic fit. And like I said, it is actually quite confronting. With the characteristics of demonic possession, they may also not be moving at all and may actually appear to be frozen. An example of this could be seen in the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which is where this particular picture is from. Yes, unfortunately, there's a lot that you'll see in this particular webinar that will be pictures that are taken from movies and Hollywood's take, I guess you could say, of what an exorcism is like. As mentioned before, exorcisms are pretty rare. So thanks to Hollywood, at least I have something to show you as an example. Fainting. Pretty self-explanatory, but of course there may be other reasons or other explanations as to why someone would be fainting. Facial structural changes. No, this doesn't mean plastic surgery like one guy once asked me, but extreme movement of the face. And I guess, the closest example I could probably think of using is somebody who may actually suffer from severe cerebral palsy, where there's a lot of eye movement and a lot of jaw movement as well. Vocal intonation changes. Has anyone here heard the audio of Annalise Michael during one of her exorcisms? Has anyone actually heard that? I think it's on the internet and it's got church music in the background. Yep. Okay, cool. Right, so a few people, yeah, it's intense. It's one hell of a confronting piece of sound, if you've ever heard it. Yeah, if you want to, you can actually go and do a Google search. You can find it. it's a really interesting piece of audio. It's the growls and screams this woman produces are incredibly loud, and it really does give credence to what our human voice boxes can produce. It's a very, guttural growl, which is common for those displaying signs of demonic possession. And if, you're interested in having like, a 3-minute snippet of this, just the audio, not having the sound or the church music behind it, I think it is, please let me know. Send me an email, and I will be able to forward it through to you, because I actually have the audio cleaned up without the actual backing track. But I do warn, it is pretty confronting. Yes, Sharon, her name is Annalise Michael. That's ANALISE I think it's a European spelling of her name. And it's, but as I said, it is pretty confronting. There are times when I've put a presentation together and I'll listen to the first couple of seconds and I'm on my own and it's at night. I'm like, right, that's good. I've cued it. Excellent. Keep moving. Even knowing what I know, it can be something that can be quite a confronting type of sound to listen to. Excuse me for a second. Beautiful. Right, next. Okay, so we're looking at sudden appearance of lesions. Now, this was a visually interesting topic to research for this webinar. Luckily, I managed to find an image before I ate something and found the least offending image. You can thank me later. Lesions are known to appear mysteriously on a person's body who may be demonically possessed. This, of course, can be explained by other means, with one of them being bed sores if the person's been bedridden for a long time. Superhuman strength. The person may be able to suddenly have superhuman strength completely out of nowhere. They may, become quite violent and are able to break free from any restraints or move objects that are, way beyond their normal strength. This physical sign is rather interesting if the person is actually quite malnutritioned and weak. Levitation. Seeing the person levitate from their bed or chair is also known as a physical sign of possession. But some actually argue that a person who displays superhuman strength may appear to levitate, especially if you're around people who already believe the person is demonically possessed. Now we'll branch into the parapsychological signs of possession. First is erased personality. Now, the person is not displaying any signs of their usual self. Sometimes, they may have a blank stare with no movement, and their eyes are open, somewhat appearing to be in a bit of a trance. Erased memories. Ooh, there we go. Erased memories. Often what is reported is the person isn't able to remember any of the demonic episodes, and can come out of an episode quite confused. Xenoglossia. Although the word sounds like a fancy European cosmetic line, it actually means knowledge of a language a person wouldn't have known previously. The word is Greek and comes from the word xenos, meaning foreigner, and glossia, meaning tongue or language. So in the case of a possessed person, often reported is their fluent knowledge of Latin when the person was never, previously exposed to it before. Controlled by a demon. The person explains that none of their actions in any way are from them, and they're controlled by this demon, and anything that they say, the things or the way they behave, it's all because of the demon. The devil made me do it. Obsession. The person is obsessed with either redeeming themselves or about being isolated from others due to the stress that they are causing friends and family, or about the fact that they could actually go under a particular episode at any time. Suicide ideation. So thoughts of suicide are very prevalent in those who appear to be suffering from demonic possession. They wish to end their lives, and they feel that this will stop the suffering that they're currently going through, and also to stop the trauma that their friends and family are going through as well. Blasphemous rage. the person may be saying all the curse words under the sun when it comes to God and Jesus. And they could be, outbursts and not even be fully demonically possessed state to actually be able to display a blasphemous rage, which leads me to aversions to holy relics. So if you've ever seen any demonic movies before or possessed movies, and they're into it, and the person's having an exorcism performed upon them, you will remember that a part of often is in the case, the priest will place a cross on the person's forehead, and they wriggle around in such discomfort. And this is a perfect example of aversion to holy relics. In the case of Annalise Michael in her earlier days, she would walk around holy relics that were placed in her home as they made her feel so uncomfortable. But what if there were ways to explain all the physical, parapsychological signs that we've just been through? What if there was even mental health conditions that could answer why a person would be showing these kinds of signs? Okay. And we'll go back. And what I will do is my PowerPoint's decided it wants to play silly buggers. So what I will talk about now is the fact that I actually have a talk happening this Saturday. The what are we now? It's the 14th, 15th, 16th of January, happening at Parramatta RSL in Sydney. So for those of you that are based in Sydney, I will be having at the Parramatta RSL. It's only $30. And if you are interested, I will be able to bring up that information for you. So let me give you a second as I bring that information up. If you are very interested, because we actually go through a fair bit of stuff, not just what we've gone through today as well. So I'll load this up now. So there we go. Ah, there's my beautiful face, depending on what time of the night that it is. So yes, it's only $30. If you want to come along, we go through all the different mental health conditions that people suffer that can be very, very, very similar. We also delve in more into the history of demonic possessions, and we also look at the different types of possessions in different cultures as well, so from a historical side as well. So if you are interested in learning more about this particular phenomena, do feel free to click the link as you see now on your screen to come along for this Saturday, and I hope to see you there as well. Also, for those who aren't based in Sydney and you're based in Victoria or South Australia, behold, I will be holding the same talk at the Paracon Australia tour road trip happening with Ben Hansen. Very, very, very excited to be doing this and be a part of this as well. So if you are in South Australia and or in Victoria, behold, I will be talking about that as well. So make sure you grab your tickets for that too. There are links on Facebook all over the place. Have a look on my page as well, but especially look out for Paracon Australia Road Trip. That's the words that you need to chuck into your Facebook search and bring those details up as well. And for those who aren't actually based in Australia, do sit tight. I will be working on content that will be available to you very, very soon. So I will jump back into the beautiful chat room. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to chuck them into the chat room. Oh, great, Glenn. I'm so glad you're coming. I saw your tickets come through. Oh, great, Andrea. Fantastic. Yay. Awesome. Very good, Sharon. I'll be looking forward to seeing you there too. I love Roz. The devil invaded my PowerPoint presentation. Well, something's, honestly, yes, let's blame the devil. Let's blame the devil. I like your analogy. Very good. No more questions or anything like that at all? You might get the Roz effect here in Adelaide. Very true. Very good question, Glenn. Have I seen an exorcism in person? No, I haven't. And because I'm not of traditionally Christian faith, there's meant exorcisms can occur in many different cultures, but because traditionally here in Australia, exorcisms, well, they're called deliverance ministry in Protestant religion, but I actually haven't, and the chances of me being involved in one will be very, very, if it's done, I say done properly, and I have to be careful how I say that, but if it's done to the Roman Catholic Church way, I probably will never be able to see one. And the reason being is because I'm not Catholic, because I'm not Christian, I'm not considered to be spiritually strong enough to witness one, because something may actually, according to Christian and or Catholic faith, something may actually happen to me where I may be taken over, and the people in those particular situations do not want to take that risk. So at the moment, it's just videos. How do you contact a proper exorcism? Is there a database? It's interesting because there's a lot of people get confused with demonologist and someone who performs an exorcism, sorry. And there's the two people contacts that I have. One is actually a priest, and another person is actually somebody who's become quite well known in detecting the possibility of somebody being demonically possessed. So it is a bit of a catch-22. Generally, people should, if it is something that could possibly be considered a demonic entity, I personally think a person should go and see their GP first. That's the first point of call before even remotely trying to look at maybe even looking at a database of a particular priest. Get yourself physically checked out, get yourself mentally checked out. There are many, many, many similar signs that a person may display that could easily be masked by literally general health conditions that a GP should be able to pick up on. Interesting. The problem is that the term has been hijacked by the Catholic Church. Absolutely, it has. It has. It's a really good point there, Andrew. As I said, exorcisms occur all across different cultures: Buddhism, Judaism. Absolutely. So they kind of really owned it. Good point. Good point. Cool. It's funny, there's the crickets in the background in my home, and it's really quite interesting seeing words come up on a chat, and I'm thinking the crickets in the background waiting. It's actually quite funny. Cool. So if anyone has any more questions, feel free. Yeah, I assume that exorcisms will be expensive too. Yeah, there is. There's some. Oh, the problem is that there are many types of demons. Yeah, there's that theory as well. There was one particular case I think I posted about recently where there was one particular church that believed there was a demon for jealousy, a demon for murder, a demon for, there's that. But then there's obviously, like you said, there's different types. There's, Beelzebub, and there's all sorts of, there's a whole encyclopedia of demons. She's got thousands, hundreds of pages on it. And I haven't even gone through it yet. So a very, very valid point. There are many, many different types, and they would be having strengths, if you should say, in many different areas as well. Good point. Maybe it's a question. If you don't believe, so what if you don't believe in God? I know only a priest can cast them out, but are there genuine possessions of people who do not believe in God? It's a good question, Sarah. Funny enough, the reason that I actually started to explore this particular subject was because as an investigator, I was petrified of being possessed. And I'm not Christian or Catholic, or don't believe in God in my own self and my faith. And so why would I be worried about something that technically should only really occur to somebody who does believe in Jesus and God? So that's a really good question. It's not a silly question at all. It makes valid sense. I think a lot of it can be a lot of people. There's a lot of society and a lot of social knowledge about exorcisms and possessions, that it can happen to anybody. I think that's a big thing that obviously played with me. Since doing my research and finding out what I have, I've found that it's obviously taken away that, and I've been able to see there are other reasons as to why. But when it comes, you make a good point. I think a lot of it is a lot of social pressure, pretty much. I think it's not pressure. Pressure is probably not the right word, but it's socially. I think as Australia is a Christian country, and generally, and it's like almost like a common thing. The fact that if you're displaying these, then you could be demonically possessed. I think it's a lot more accepted. I also think that sometimes, if somebody is having difficulties in their life, it can sometimes be easier to say that a person may be demonically possessed, as opposed to actually be suffering something that's a mental or physical health issues. So good point. Great question. Yes, good point. Yes, demons do believe in God. That's absolutely true, because they are, demons are cast out from heaven. So they were angels. They were there, they were on side with God, and they have been cast out. How do you shield if you're worried? Oh, good question. Interesting, asking somebody who hasn't got a Christian faith. So I will answer it as best as I can. For me, I think it's knowing your strength. To me, I personally myself believe that wind gives way to power. For those who have sailed on the shores before will know that when you're sailing, it's actually the opposite, as power gives way to wind. But I always say wind gives way to power. I think there's a lot of personal physical power that we have within ourselves that we underestimate. And I think even when it comes to rather dark times, and there are certain buildings even now, or certain rooms I kind of hesitate going into, but I'm building my big girl panties, and I'm putting them on and growing up. But doesn't mean that I'm doing it because I feel I'm going to be overtaken. So I think believing in yourself, knowing that you're safe, knowing that you have complete and utter control, I think that's half the battle in dealing with something that is unforeseen. Generally, something that people do not cannot physically see. Yeah, and that's true. Yes, you're right, Ros. Very true. I say true possession. The general attributes of possession, it is something that takes over in time. Absolutely, it's something that it can be gradual. There are cases I've dealt with where somebody says, "Look, the demon. I feel it's demonic, and it's moving objects in my house." I'm like, "Oh, geez. Well, how long has this been happening?" "Oh, a couple of weeks," and it's demonic. It's like, all right, well, to be brutally honest, it's only been a couple of weeks, and there are times where somebody will say it's been happening for years, and I feel it's demonic, and yet the symptoms that they speak about aren't very severe. So it's like, well, from what I've heard and what I've seen, if it was actually going to be demonic, you would know about it. It doesn't take very long, and it can actually be quite severe. So it just depends. That's from my experience. It may be different for somebody else, but that's from what I've picked up in over the years. Oh, great question, Glenn. Are there any well-documented Australian cases of exorcisms caught in the media or something? You know what? I find a lot of the exorcism cases are very, very easy to find in the States. I think they happen just as much, if not probably more, in Australia. But there is, it's almost like a shroud of secrecy. It is really difficult to find people able to be open enough to speak about it. And I think the way that we think in Australia is very different to the States. So I don't think it's harder to find people willing to speak about it, especially in media. I think there's probably more of a stigma in Australia about people being demonically possessed as being oh, well, you're just crazy, as opposed to in America, where I personally, from my experience, would perceive their faith in Christianity is a lot stronger, so they have a lot more legitimacy with a person possibly being demonically possessed. So shows I've been watching all say that the target usually starts out happy and then they become withdrawn and depressed. Yes, that's true, and that's the thing. It's a good point there too, Ros. It's that's absolutely something that can happen, but we must also be aware that that can also happen to anybody regarding anything. They may have an undiagnosed condition, which is why I always recommend somebody actually goes to their GP, because it could actually be an underlying condition, either physically or mentally, that is not being diagnosed yet. It's people are very quick in some cases to jump to say, oh, it's demonic, it must be something like that because we can't explain it. But once you know there are certain ways in which the body works and the mind works, and also going and seeing professionals, then you can actually work out, well, maybe that's not the case at all. And those situations need to be looked at first. Absolutely. Oh, that's good. Possession doesn't particularly have to be within the human body. They can take shape in the form of dolls. Interesting. So you're talking about saying demonically possessed objects. Is that the type of thing that you're thinking about? Oh, yeah. I love that. Get Zach Bagans on. He loves demonic demons. Very good, Ross. I know Zach would be in there. So. Yes, very true, Emma. The media does turn it into a circus. Extremely good point there. Absolutely. And the media don't want the truth; they want the story. So, with someone who's demonically possessed, will probably get cast out of society in Australia. I think it's very different in America. And I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've been in the UK, but yeah, definitely in America and to Australia, it's very different. Okay, cool. Dolls are empty. Interesting, though. I think that it's once it gets to the point of levitation, it's probably beyond something your GP could help with. True, very true. Interesting point. An interesting point. I have my theories as to why levitation is a particular attribute that is reported, but I haven't seen personally myself, or unless it's been personal accounts of somebody levitating, until I actually see proof of somebody levitating. To me, that's when something like that would be viable. But if somebody is levitating, maybe it could be something else completely different going on there that actually would be from a more spiritual help as opposed to a physical and biological help. Yes, Sharon, you mentioned the Raggedy Ann doll in America that's kept in a glass case because it's dangerous by its beliefs. Obviously, isn't it Johnny Zaffis's Haunted Museum? He's got, oh geez, I'd love to go in there, but anyway, that's another webinar. Good point, really good point. I think objects can carry energy. There's a possibility. Say, for instance, sandstone is made of a natural material. It also has crystal in it. Crystal is also what they use in radios, and radios transmit. So to give weight to the fact that there is, obviously there's residual theory when it comes to hauntings. That's, again, a whole other webinar. The fact that a particular object could actually retain energy from something, how it got there, we don't know, but actually cause activity. I mean, it's the same thing as some people say with houses. Houses can actually take a whole life of their own once they've moved in, compared to a place they've moved into previously that had absolutely no activity at all. Do you feel people are quick to label something demonic due to the lack of understanding of the paranormal? Oh, how could I answer this diplomatically? Wow, Glenn. Oh, no, Emma, thank you. Glenn, sorry, Glenn, my mistake. I need glasses. Glenn, thank you. Yeah, I have to say, yeah, but that's not, I can say it's not necessarily the person's fault. Is the fact that they don't know. There's not a lot of information out there unless you go absolutely digging, and there's all different areas you can find information. Unless you go digging and knowing where to find, you won't find it. So that's kind of, as you can imagine, with a webinar like this and the talk on Saturday, and then obviously later on this, in March, that's kind of a bit of my aim, is be able to at least educate people. There are ways in which this can actually naturally explained. So it gives, as paranormal investigators, we're debunkers. That's what we're meant to do. We are meant to be the party poopers of the paranormal. So we're meant to look at all the reasonable explanations first. Then if something comes across our path, that we've looked at reasonable explanations, we're finding difficulty with that, then we can dig further and go, okay, there might be something here. So I do think that lack of education has a big part to do with it. And I think sometimes from a human perspective, if somebody, a loved one, is displaying signs of possible demonic possession, it's easier to believe that, as opposed to for a family to be able to deal with the fact that that person may actually have something underlying happening with a physical and or mental health issue. Yes, true, Emma. There are churches that teach everything in the paranormal is demonic, and it's not true. It is not true, exactly. I've worked with many, many mediums, and there's only now up to the point I've literally only one medium I really will ever work with, and it's the same thing. There's light and dark, and people, there's light and dark on the other side. If that's what you believe, that's what, if we die and we leave something behind, then why would we be any different? And that's true. It's just because something may be noisy, something may be making bangs, something may be scratching you, or if that is actually happening, it may not be actually demonic. It may just be somebody trying to get attention, or something's happened, or it could be another underlying issue. Very, very good point. Ooh. Mm. Yeah, good, true, yeah. Paranormal party pooper, yes. We are meant to be paranormal party poopers. Interesting that you feel that the possessed and the mentally ill feel differently. You must be quite an intuitive person, Andrew, because for me, I see a very black and white type thing, but I still believe that people need to go and see a GP first. You need to rule out everything. When you die, you'll be haunting and possessing everything, especially the ones that need karma. Well, take a ticket, sweetheart. I think we've all felt like that. I know. We've all got, what happens if you passed away and you're able to be invisible, turning in the pictures on the wall upside down for those who suffer from OCD and all this sort of stuff. I know we've all got a kind of long list of that, don't we? Yeah. Cool. So if anyone else have any other questions, I don't want to keep you too long. Oh, that's my stomach. Oh, thank you, Ross. I could talk to you all night. Bless. That was a possum. Excuse. I can see webinar 2 coming along about possessions. Yeah, possibly. What's your opinion on the difference between demonic possession and walk-ins? Oh, good question. I think from my experience in research, I believe the walk-ins have a very different intention than demonic possession. I think demonic possession comes from how can you put it, like an elemental side of it. It was never human. I think walk-ins tend to generally be human, and they have a different intention. That's my, yeah. Walk-ins are human spirits, demons are not. Yeah, my father was. Oh, wow, cool. Oh, do you believe animals can be possessed? Wow, what a really cool question. I think my cat at about 2:30 in the morning, when she decides to run up and down the hallway, probably explains that probably better than I could. But in all seriousness, I think I've never come across that myself, but doesn't say that it could never happen. And also at the same time, doesn't necessarily mean that an animal could possibly be demonically possessed. The animal could be displaying a particular health condition that may mimic that too. So it's a very good question. Yeah, not walk. All walk-ins are consensual. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, walk-ins means, as I said, I've never walk-ins to me is a very much you start to really delve into the whole mediumship side of it. And to me, to be able to have a walk-in, I think there needs to be a certain level of someone being quite open. I remember when I was at Scarefest last year, and Amy Allen, I saw her talk, and I was really interested in about it because she's a very, very, very sensitive person on a very spiritual level, extremely talented woman. And she would say, you must never, never provoke. You must never, put people's lives at risk with this, when you walk into a place and do this. And for her, I completely understand that. For me, I'm probably as psychic as a brick. So I would walk in and, provoke in a particular location very, very rarely, but I have done it, and not in someone's home. That to me is, not happening. I never would. So I think walk-ins, from my personal perspective, would actually also fall under that category as well. I think some people just seem to be just more open than others, where there's more of a possibility. That doesn't necessarily mean it will happen, but there is more of a possibility. Yes, good point. Jumpers, yeah, jumpers. I've heard of that as well, Andrew. Yeah, that's interesting. If it's a human spirit but not consensual, then what would you call it? Quite often it can occur when people either have little shielding or at a particular low point. Yeah. They can also be possession. Yeah. Good point. Well, if anyone doesn't have any other questions, I'll one last question round. Oh, it's raining. Oh, brilliant. All right, lovely people. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope we've all come away with something. As I said, feel free to come along on Saturday. If you're floating about in South Australia, head over to the Paracon Australia Road Trip website and also Facebook page. And also, if you're going to be floating about in Victoria as well, that would be amazing. Oh, no, hang on. We have one question Andrew's got. When clearing a person of possession, it's important to destroy any, figments of attaching. Yeah, true, very true. Good point, mate. Good point. All right, lovely people. I shall bow out. As I said, feel free to email me, message me through Facebook, or contact me via my Facebook page about anything about tonight. If you've got any queries or any other questions, happy to answer them. And I hope to see you at the next, or hear from you, or I guess you could say see you because it's typing, right? So hope to see you at the next webinar. Thanks again.